What's up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com, or, of course, if you're watching on our fast-growing YouTube channel on the race for 10,000 subscribers. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me for Fort Worth, Texas, Dickies Arena, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ, what a game, man. We'll start with that. Carolina getting the 93-86 overtime win over Baylor. I think you messaged us in the group chat and said this is one of the craziest game I think you said you've ever covered, which is saying a lot. You've been doing this for a long time, AJ, as most people know.
Yeah.
So as we always do, let's just dive right into this one before we kind of talk about what comes next for the Tar Heels. And I want to start with, I guess you would kind of say the first 30 minutes of that game. Carolina building that 25-point lead, up 25 with 10 minutes to go in the second half, and just in complete control. I thought Carolina looked – I tweeted it out, but I said, this is the best I've seen Carolina play this season. I thought they were fluid on offense, played pretty well defensively. I think Baylor missed some shots at times that they normally probably would hit, but I think you still have to give credit for Carolina for making Baylor feel uncomfortable and building that lead. So before we dive into what happened after that 25-point lead with Manick and with Love fouling out, we'll hit on that in a second because there is a lot of things I want to discuss about that. Let's talk about Carolina getting to that 25-point lead first.
Well, all 45 minutes are part of the story because you don't have the crazy last 10 minutes without the unbelievable performance by North Carolina in the first 30 minutes. And then all that happened right there at the 10:08 mark when Manick was ejected. That was as good as I've seen. We've had this conversation quite a few times in the last few weeks. Seems like every week they play a game which, that's the best they played this year. And then they up it the next time. The Duke game we thought was their best game, but Baylor's more physical than Duke. They challenge you defensively more than Duke. I don't think Duke's that good defensively. And they got a bunch of young kids out there. Baylor's got grown men. They got older guys. You got guys who've been through a lot. They had 3 dudes playing a lot of minutes today that played a lot of minutes in the national championship game last year. They're national champions. They have a great culture. Absolutely. And you saw that culture come out in the second part that we're going to talk about in that run. And before anybody, let's stay on this part here. I thought R.J. Davis showed – Roy Williams every once in a while would throw out that little tough little nut comment. He used to do it with Marcus Page every once in a while. If Roy was the head coach today in the press conference, he would have referred to R.J. Davis as a tough little nut. That was an incredible performance. He became the first player in Carolina history to get 10 assists in one NCAA game and score 30 points in the next NCAA game. He had 12 assists in one turnover against Marquette. Today, they needed RJ to score. He did. I thought early it looked like Carolina was really going to have trouble putting the ball in the basket. And he hit a couple quick threes. He scored their first 8 points, and it relaxed everybody. And they just started flowing. I thought Armando's screening, David Sisk, who's a brilliant basketball mind, has been pointing out lately Armando's screening. And when he was in the game and screening the way he does, they were getting a lot of shots. He went out of the game for about 2.5, 3 minutes in the first half, and suddenly the offense bogged down. They didn't have the screener out there. You have to screen a team like Baylor the way that they defend. You've got to force them to switch. You've got to try to catch them in something and force a lot of movement on defense so you could find some open spots. And that leads me to Brady. I thought Brady's movement out the ball today was incredible. In fact, he hit a 3 in the corner not long before he was ejected, where he was wide open under the basket and they missed him. Now, a lot of guys would just stay there and camp out. But anybody who's been to basketball camp in the 4th grade knows that somebody has told you at some point in your life, a tree, a post is a lot harder to guard, a lot easier to guard than something that's moving around, right? So he didn't just stay there and jump up and down and flail his arms and want the ball. He just continued to move. And by the time Baylor reacted to, hey, he's wide open there, the defender went to that spot. And at that point, Brady was on the right corner. I think Leakey found him with a swing pass, and he banged down the 3. So Brady's basketball characteristics tonight were at an extraordinarily high level, and so were RJ's, and that was enough. Believe it or not, that was enough. That's we talked about why this team can make a run. It's because not many other teams in a tournament have 4 guys that can literally just go off like these guys do. So if Armando's not getting a bunch of stuff inside, if Caleb's cold, there's still 2 other guys that can pick it up and go for 25 plus, and that's what happened tonight. And offensively, for the first 30 minutes, that was as good as they had been. In fact, they ended up at one point, they had 45 assists on 53 baskets here in Fort Worth. in the two games. I don't remember what the final total is. I know that they
22-11 today. 22 assists for Carolina on, made baskets, 28 made baskets.
Okay. So, but because the way the game changed in the last 10 minutes, they weren't going to get as many assists. They still assisted on 51 of 62 made baskets here in Fort Worth.
That's great math right there.
So even with the insane last 10 minutes of regulation and then the overtime, they still had that amazing percentage. So that's an indicator that this team was clicking big time until they pulled the greatest meltdown in Carolina basketball history, literally. We'll hit on that right now.
Yeah, let's hit on that. Before we do, I want to dive into the stats real quick, as I always do. RJ Davis led the way, career high 30 points, huge game from him, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. Brady Manick, before the ejection, 26 points, 5 rebounds, fouled out at the 10:08 mark after scoring 17 points in the second half before he fouled out. Armando Bacot, 15 points, 16 boards, 27th double-double of the year for him. Dontrez Styles came off the bench. We'll hit on him in a second as well, because I thought he made some big plays down the stretch for the Tar Heels, particularly in overtime. 9 points on 4 for 7 shooting. Caleb Love fouled out around the 6:15 mark. Relatively quiet game offensively for him. Just 5 points, but definitely crucial losing him with the way Baylor was playing. I think having him out there down the stretch, the way Baylor was trapping would have definitely helped, just having a ball handle out there. But next thing I want to hit on, AJ, what happened, like you said, after Carolina builds that 25-point lead. So Carolina up 25 points, 10 minutes left, and man, it gets ejected. Flagrant 2. I want to talk about this real quick, and I want to ask you about it too, because I'm not going to lie. I actually put this on Twitter too and got a bunch of shit from Carolina fans about it. I thought it was a foul originally on the first.
Disgust.
Yeah, I know. Right? Sorry, guys. It's just a family-friendly podcast. I originally thought that
demerit for Jacob.
I originally thought it was the right call, because I saw a particular angle early on. There was a couple different angles that they were showing, and what it looked like to me initially is that Manick threw the elbow a little bit, kind of looked like he knew what he was doing a little bit with that. But after seeing the replays down the stretch, saw a couple different angles, I'll hold my hands up. I don't think it was a flagrant 2. I think it was definitely a flagrant 1, but I don't think he should have been ejected. I want to get your take on that real quick before we dive into just how Carolina was able to get up so quickly.
Here's what a lot of people don't understand. They don't realize is that when you cover the NCAA tournament, sometimes you're the last one to know stuff. Because they don't play controversial replays in the buildings, and there are no monitors on press row except for the TV people. So I was texting staff. I think I texted chat that you're in, or maybe I texted Dina or my brother or somebody, and saying, what the hell are they talking about here? We didn't even know, because when they called it in the building, when the PA guy, let me back up a second. We knew that it was a serious incident because it happened on the basket on the opposite end from where I was. And after the review, one of the officials came over to the Carolina huddle, and I could see the official and I could see the players. Everyone was right around him. And I saw Brady go like this and drop his towel, and he kind of put his head like that, like he does, like when he misses a shot, sometimes there's a dead ball, and just start to walk away. And I realized he was just ejected. I mean, it was pretty obvious he was ejected. But then the PA guy says, flagrant 2, Brady Manick, and that's his third personal. Well, why would you announce his third personal if he was ejected? Because it didn't matter how many personals it was. So he walks off with Eric Hoots, who's part of the program, and I got people in the stands behind me asking me. I'm asking them. I said, "What did you see?"
Yeah,
I didn't really know for sure, but then it was pretty obvious he was ejected, and I got some confirmation from a few people who were watching on TV, but they never announced in the building that he was actually ejected. Now, flagrant 2 obviously is an ejection, but there had to be some clarification on that because nobody on press row knew. But it was pretty obvious in the way he walked the locker room. He wasn't injured. So obviously, to me, he was ejected, and found out a few minutes later, and the team totally melted down. They didn't respond to it. And by the way, sidebar as well, full of sidebars today. And,
so many things to talk about. Yeah.
Everything I wrote, by the way, out the door.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Funny enough, I was thinking about
my notes at the end were all just describing plays and sequences. Yeah. So I have to go back and recreate the 600 content items, which is fine. I got plenty of time. Early game, you got to love that.
Yeah, you like that.
So after the game at the dais, which is where I'm sitting right now, we had Justin McCoy and Dontrez Styles, and they had cards for them. So little identification cards, which whoever thought we'd have Justin McCoy and Dontrez Styles in a post game in a second round NCAA tournament game. Then we had Leaky, Armando, and RJ. And not many questions about Brady. It's more about what happened afterward, how they handled that and so on. And Hubert really wasn't asked about it at all either. So afterward, some of us went back toward the Carolina locker room. We're not allowed in the locker room yet because of COVID. This would have been a perfect day to be in the locker room because we could have just found out, like from Caleb, like, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
Last 6:15 of regulation and overtime. Because I looked over at him and it looked like he had just seen a terrible accident.
Mm-hmm.
The look on his face was like, oh my God, gracious. Mm-hmm. And I would love to find out what was going through Brady's mind as he sat in the locker room for an hour. Mm-hmm. For an hour. Eric Hoots stayed back there with him, which I thought was a pretty cool move by Eric. So we went back there and we tried to see if we can get a statement from Brady, or maybe pull Brady out and have us ask a few questions. He didn't want to talk to the media. He felt like he had let his team down. He felt really bad about it. And I understand that, but they did pull it out, which we're going to hit on here in a few minutes. But that was an unbelievable turning point. And Baylor hit a couple quick baskets. And I thought, well, they got some life. Because I had tweeted like a minute earlier, posted on our message board, that Baylor's body language is atrocious. Mm-hmm. They look done. They look like they're completely done, and Carolina is kind of just like the cock of the walk out there, right? Mm-hmm. And Brady picks up that ejection, and that just pumped life right back into Baylor because it made a couple plays. And I saw the people behind me were blaming the refs for it. I saw Twitter where people blaming refs don't blow a 25-point lead, guys.
No.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The refs don't. You're North Carolina.
Yeah.
You blew a 25-point lead. It ain't on the refs. Now, I don't know if it was a good call or not because I haven't seen the replay of it yet. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. No, it doesn't.
It doesn't really matter whether it was the right call because officials don't lose games for teams. They don't win games for teams. The players do, because as many bad calls you might see in a game, until a team hits every shot, doesn't turn it over, and rotates perfectly defensively every time down the court, then the officials don't cost teams games. Teams do. I understand they can impact games. And there was an impact here, but you're up 67-42. You don't blow that. They ain't on the refs. That's on North Carolina. But to North Carolina's credit, the toughness that you and I have been talking about over the last 6 weeks, when they find a way to beat Clemson on the road, they found that way to scrape out that back alley brawl at Louisville, the way that they fought and beat Syracuse, all that crap matters. And people got on us every once in a while saying, well, they're not playing well. They're barely beating bad teams, but they're finding ways to win. The wagon, that big red wagon we've been talking about, they keep collecting stuff as they're going along. Well, they collected a lot of it, and every bit of it came pouring out on the floor here today. Every bit of it, all the good stuff and all the bad stuff.
Absolutely.
And for them, the more recent additions to that wagon, the toughness, the brute, the fortitude, all showed up in overtime.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
The meltdown, that was the biggest meltdown in Carolina history. The biggest blown deficit or blown lead that they had ever had before was in '97, I think, against Maryland. I covered that game. It was my fifth game I ever covered. And then this would have been, they had never lost a lead when in the NCAA tournament game when leading by double figures in halftime.
Yeah.
They were 44-0. Now they're 45-0, I think it is, even though they lost the lead, but ended up winning the game. So there was a whole lot. This is the craziest game I've ever covered.
Yeah,
I've covered 1,900 college basketball games. I was there, Villanova, Carolina. That was a crazy sequence. This was a crazy game. None of this game made sense from the first moment to the last. And we'll hit on the overtime now.
Yeah, we'll hit on this. I got the TV on, just saw the Brady Manic foul again. And I swear, like I said, when it initially happened, I did think it was an elbow that looked like it was kind of done on purpose by him. But after seeing a couple other angles and stuff like that, I don't really think it was flagrant too, so I'll hold my hands up on that. We all make mistakes.
I do think they try to interpret intent at times. And when a guy is going off, and this is what somebody, I don't take credit for this line, someone else said it, I'm not going to say who, but when a guy is going off like Larry Bird, and you're up 25 in the NCAA tournament game, what is the point in throwing a bow like that?
And that was that was something that I talked to with.
But again, I didn't see it, so I can't comment on it. It doesn't really even matter at this point. What matters more to me as a journalist covering the game is how did they react to it? They didn't react well.
No,
they had a horrible time getting the ball in bounds. That's not the first time we've seen a press effect done this year. But then they figured it out a little bit in overtime.
They did, and we'll hit on that in a second too. I don't want to hit on overtime right now because hitting on that second half a little bit as well. You could kind of tell that you got to give some credit to Baylor as well, because like you said, referees don't blow 25-point leads. I don't care what you think about a refereeing performance. I didn't think it was great by any means. Don't get me wrong, but they don't blow 25-point leads. But you can kind of tell as soon as Manick went out, you saw that Baylor had a little belief and kind of, okay, there's a little glimmer of hope right here. And they started hitting some more shots.
They hit a couple of quick shots.
And you could also see on the other end that when Manick went out, Carolina on the flip side kind of froze up a little bit. You could tell that it affected them a little bit. I thought it was evident on TV.
I think it happened after. I think that became apparent after Baylor. They scored 8 quick points.
Yeah.
And the run actually was 10-0. It was actually a 10-0 run. Mm-hmm. They scored 8 quick points. And I think Carolina's like, whoa. Because you look up and you say, wow, this is now 17 and there's still 9 minutes left.
Yeah. Right back in it.
And then it got to like 7:45 and it's down to like 12. And I tweeted, I said, this clock can't move fast enough for North Carolina. No. And I think they played like it. They played like that. Imagine a slow motion. Imagine you're in real time, but the clock is moving in slow motion time. That's what it was like for the Tar Heels. Mm-hmm. And they didn't handle it well, but they did enough to actually force Baylor to score 37 points in the last 9.5 minutes of the 10 minutes of the game regulation to force the overtime. I mean, they hit a couple. Now they didn't hit free throws when they should have. Armando has been a better free throw shooter this year. He did not hit some. And they had some bad turnovers. Caleb's 5th foul was just a really bad mistake on his part. Justin McCoy had a charge in which Dontrez Styles was wide open right in front of me, wide open for a 3. Yeah. Justin made eye contact with him. He saw him and didn't kick it out. Mm-hmm. But they survived those things. Yeah. Here's what's crazy. You lead by 25 points with 10.5 minutes left in an NCAA tournament game. And is it fair to say you stole one?
In a way, yeah. That's a great way to describe it.
That's kind of what happens. Probably what I haven't started writing any of my official stuff yet, so I'm probably going to use it. So people now know it. They'll at least read my column. Probably. I have no idea what I'm going to write. It's just going to fly off the fingertips at some point.
Let's hit on overtime real quickly, just to dive into it a little bit more. Baylor forces overtime. I don't think Carolina fans might not admit it, but I think when you look at the lineup that was out there for the Tar Heels, you look at the momentum that Baylor had going into it. I didn't really think Carolina had much of a chance going to overtime. I really thought that was going to be the game for them, but Baylor goes into overtime, shoots 1 for 11 in OT, just 6 points. Carolina shoots 50% from the floor. They had a few things go their way. There's so many things running through my head right now because there's so many moments in that game where I just kind of had to sit back and be like, what am I even watching right now? And particularly in overtime, some of the fouls, some of the loose balls, the timeout, the Baylor call where it looked like the guy had possession for about 0.2 seconds and was able to call a timeout. Then on the flip, Carolina tries to call a timeout on a loose ball, doesn't get the same call. It's a jump ball. Baylor gets the ball back. So there was so many instances where things went like that. But I think
Carolina didn't have possession now. From my vantage point,
it didn't look like. I thought it was the right call, but it was one of them very close moments again where you're like, things are just, it's a matter of milliseconds in some of these things. Yeah. So, but credit to Carolina. I think Dontrez Styles hitting that 3 to open up overtime was huge. I thought, and then you look at some of the other opportunities, Carolina up 6 with about 50 seconds left. Armando Baycott's wide open under the basket and Leaky Black almost throws it out of the arena, hits the backboard. Baylor gets the ball, that kind of jab.
I think he was trying to throw an alley-oop. There. And I could see what he saw because that was right in front of me as well. Mm-hmm. And Armando looked to go set like a back screen or something on somebody. And he just was looking like he was going to maybe do something like that. He didn't actually try to do it. And then that ball shot out of a cannon. It looked
like it was shot out of a rifle with that one. But there's just so many instances in that overtime in particular where that game literally could have gone either way. But when you look at the stats and you break it down statistically, Baylor shooting 1 for 11 was their downfall in overtime. You can't go into overtime and shoot the ball that poorly.
Here's what I think happened. And again, I got 2 questions in the post-game press conference because we don't have the locker room situation. So I couldn't ask anybody this, but I wanted to ask if they felt like Baylor's sense of urgency ended when regulation ended. Because Baylor was playing with an unbelievable sense of urgency. I mean, it's like they all had burners underneath them. And they got to overtime and they tied it. They got the thing into the extra session. And I think I'm not going to say they relaxed. It's just they didn't have the same sense of urgency. And I think that kind of helped Carolina recalibrate a little bit and kind of, okay, we got our breath. Okay, they're not doing the same thing right now that they were doing a few minutes ago. I think we can handle this. Just get the ball up the court and get it in RJ's hands and let's roll. And it was still ugly at times, but they got that bucket. They got 2 quick baskets. I guess they were up 5 at about the 3:35 mark. I think that's when Dontrez hit his 3. I have to double check. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of felt like, wow, they actually might win this freaking thing. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of regulation, a few people on press were like, there's no chance. You're gonna get
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
But Baylor changed, mm-hmm. and Carolina changed. I have to go back and look at the transcript and listen to the press conference again about what the kids said. Hubert told them during huddle right at the end of regulation before they went out for overtime. But we're learning, and we have learned, especially now we've gotten closer to the kids here with things opening up more in the last month or so. We're learning about the stuff that Hubert says to these kids can kind of, affect them, mm-hmm. and can kind of seep in. And sometimes it's sort of that, connected kind of juice. Hubert says something, it kind of fills them with some fuel, mm-hmm. some good mind fuel, some emotional fuel, and that usually leads to the kind of physical fuel that you need. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's what happened when I was typing up, looking at the bench in between the end of regulation and start of overtime. And I'm thinking to myself, Justin McCoy's sitting there listening to him. Dontrez Styles, these guys have DNPs.
Yeah, a few.
A lot of DNPs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Styles played 25 minutes. His career high was 16 before today. And credit Hubert for I know a lot of people were bashing and say, well, this is why you developed your bench. Well, okay. The bench did enough. So I guess Hubert gets that last laugh. But Dontrez did not play well in his first stint in the first half. He didn't play well at all. He looked uncomfortable. He did a couple of decent things, but he did some things you're like, wow, this might be too big for him right now. Mm-hmm. Hubert put him in again late in the first half, and Dontrez did look a lot more comfortable. So credit Hubert for not allowing that segment to affect how he viewed Dontrez the rest of the game. He needed to get him out there. He got him. I think Armando picked up a second foul, and he got Dontrez out there, and that helped. Because when they got through that flurry where they couldn't get the ball in bounds and they were just total panic mode and things kind of settled down a little bit, especially in overtime, I thought Dontrez looked like he belonged on the floor. I thought Justin McCoy at times looked like he belonged on the floor. When he dribbled the ball up court and ended up with that charge foul, that was such a good decision. Should have kicked it out over into the corner for the 3 or just pulled the thing back out. So there's a lot of film stuff where Hubert could say, okay, guys, you're going to the Sweet 16, you did a lot of wonderful things, but good gracious, Mama Lucia. Yeah. There's a lot to fix here. And that's probably a good thing. Mm-hmm. So, that does guts, that mental toughness, RJ, and, Leaky, sometimes in situations like that, the older guy sometimes thinks I'm the one that needs to take the shots now, who doesn't normally take the shots. They try to take over in that sense because they're on the hierarchy of the roster, right? Mm-hmm. Leaky didn't do that. Leaky continued to play his game. He didn't force stuff. And I think he deserves a little credit for that because that's good basketball. That's the player he is. He's not the guy who's going to suddenly in overtime pound on the floor and try to take guys one-on-one and shoot jumpers and stuff. He passed up some open shots because he was running what they wanted to run. He was trying to get them to play the basketball they had played to build the lead they had and then to jump ahead again in overtime. And they did build a little bit of a cushion. So it's the craziest game I've ever covered, Jacob.
We could sit on it for another hour and talk about it.
I mean, honestly, and I'm still going to go back there and sit down and still have to process this because that was as high drama from the beginning of the game. Because when they're kicking Baylor's rear, a couple of us are talking on press row like they're kicking their, that
was a beatdown. Yeah,
dollar sign. Yeah. How is this happening again? Mm-hmm. And then boom, the mother of all meltdowns, and they survived it. Unbelievable.
Ebbs and flows to say the least. Survive in advance, AJ. Survive in advance, right?
Yeah, they've won what 13 out of 16. I don't even know what
it's
is.
Something
right
like that. I
need to go back and look too. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you right now, they can beat UCLA. They can beat St. Mary's. And their other part of that bracket opened up. This would not shock me. I wrote something before the tournament, why this team can make a run. We've talked about it. You and I were talking in freaking early February, still saying this can be a good team. Mm. And I said I thought this team is built to make a tournament run because they have different guys that can score. They all score in different ways. They have unique skill sets. It's not like there's any cookie cutters out there. Mm. And we saw that come through the first 2 games. I mean, a lot of people saw it too. I'm not trying to say you and I were ahead of the curve on this one. But
It's impressive.
They got to win 2 more to get to New Orleans. But the club that we saw here the last 2 games is certainly a club worthy of going to New Orleans.
Absolutely. Yeah, confidence has got to be high with this team. It's March, man. Survive and advance is the name of the game. And I think this was a true, if you look at a game, if you look up survive and advance in the dictionary, this game should be the first example that pops up because this is one in which Carolina,
and that,
man, so many things to talk about. We can sit here and talk for another hour on this.
Now I get to go to that beautiful city, Philadelphia.
Yeah, I know you're looking forward to that one, right, AJ? At least it's a little closer to home, you know what I mean? At least a little bit closer to home.
You know, they got rolling in 16 where things came together.
Yeah.
You know, Joel's game came together, during the course of the 16 season. Bryce became a superstar. Justin's game was picking up. Kennedy and Isaiah Kennedy especially was finding himself. Roy's message to him started sinking through, and that club had to go through Philadelphia in the regional as well to get to the Final Four. So, and they had to play a blue blood in the Sweet 16. They beat Indiana, so they may get UCLA.
Yeah.
I guess Indiana's kind of a has-been blue blood now.
At this point,
UCLA's still blue blood. UCLA's still blue blood, so they count.
Absolutely.
But they may not beat St. Mary's, so we're not going to jump too far ahead. But, wow, I got to process this, and I got about 6 hours of writing to do.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you run, AJ. Again, Carolina winning 93-86 over top-seeded Baylor in the Eastern region, advancing to the Sweet 16. Again, we'll play the winner of the St. Mary's versus UCLA game tonight, 7:10 p.m. tip-off for that one. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. As always, guys, make sure you keep it locked to TarHeelIllustrated.com for all your post-game coverage from the overtime win for the Tar Heels. Just go to our description below, click the link, and it'll take you right over there. Like AJ's alluded to a few times, he's got a lot of writing to do, so we'll have a lot of stuff coming out of this one here very shortly. And you guys know the drill too. Like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell as well. We needed Carolina to keep extending their season to hit that 10,000 subscribers mark, AJ. So we at least got another week to get there. We'll see how it goes. But y'all keep sharing, keep subscribing. And
we're not supposed to root. We're not supposed to root, and we don't root. But I would like to get 10,000 just so you can have a different pitch.
Yeah, exactly. The pitch is getting a little outdated. Come on, guys, hit the subscribe button so I can stop saying we need to hit 10,000 before the basketball season ends. Carolina's helping me out right now, though, AJ. They're looking after me. They're trying to get us
Hubert
there.
wants us to get 10,000 too.
Yeah, that's
Hubert
the
wants
reason.
us to hit 10,000.
That was probably that had to be in their head today in overtime. They're just like, man, we can't lose this game. THL's got to get 10,000 for the basketball season in. So I'm definitely lying about that. But
it was primary in their thinking.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. Again, I've been Jacob Turner.
All right.
He's been Andrew Jones. We'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.